University are ongoing but not progressing. And so the United Auto Workers, which represents about 19,000 of the UC employees, published a list of 13 bargaining demands. They include a living wage, reductions in rent for student housing, free tuition, access to free public transportation, greater support for undocumented immigrants, and class size limits and divesting from the university police. The strike could begin as early as November 14th. Turning now to Chipotle. Everyone who witnessed the burrito maker close its store in Augusta, Maine over the summer, right after workers there announced they were unionizing, knew why Chipotle did it: to bust that union. And now the National Labor Relations Board agrees. The agency issued a complaint Thursday accusing Chipotle of illegally closing the store and put forward a number of actions the company must take to remedy it. First, it has to reopen the Augusta store. Then it has to offer everyone who worked there their jobs back with back pay. Next, it has to officially recognize Chipotle United as representing the workers and bargain with them. And in addition to all of that, the company has to put up notices at all of its 3,000 stores and inform all of its employees of their labor rights and admit that what it did in Augusta was illegal. Now, Chipotle is promising to challenge the order. The NLRB gave the company until November 17th to respond. Ultimately, this will be settled in the courts. And one last labor story here, this one concerning Elon Musk and his mass layoffs at Twitter. Workers at the social media company are waking up this morning to find out they've been fired. Musk piled so much debt on the company as part of his takeover that he now has to fire thousands of people in order to pay arrears. But guess what? The terminations are illegal and Musk is getting sued. As Bloomberg reported Thursday, a class action lawsuit was filed in California accusing Twitter of not providing enough notice to fired workers, as is required by federal and California law. Under the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act, large firms are not allowed to engage in mass layoffs without a 60-day advance notice. Musk provided a notice of like a day or two. The lawsuit is intended to force the company to comply with federal law and also to preempt Twitter from forcing employees to sign documents that waive their right to participate in the lawsuit. This isn't the first time that Elon Musk broke federal law with mass layoffs. He did the same damn thing in June at Tesla, cutting 10% of the workforce without proper notification. He was sued then too, but ultimately prevailed in killing off the class action against him. So I guess he figured he could do it again. Anyway, we'll have more on Mr. Musk and the shit circus at Twitter later in the show. Hard to find something that 185 nations agree on, but ending the U.S. embargo on Cuba is one of them. For the 30th straight time, the UN General Assembly condemned Washington's ongoing economic warfare against Havana. The vote was 185-2. 185 countries on one side, and on the other, the United States and the apartheid nation of Israel. The U.S.-Cuba relationship has actually worsened since President Obama moved to reforge ties with the island nation, calling the embargo a failure. Much of the diplomatic progress that was made under the Obama administration, like removing the country from the state sponsor of terrorism list, was immediately reversed by Trump, and Joe Biden has been reluctant to return to a footing of normalizing relations. Ahead of the vote, Cuba's foreign minister, Bruno Rodriguez, said that the embargo has only gotten crueler since 2019, and he said that through the first 14 months of the Biden presidency, the U.S. has inflicted more than $6.3 billion in economic damages on Cuba. Now, speaking of Israel, the U.S.'s lone ally in defying the rest of the world, it just had an election, and the results are, well, not great. The ultra-nationalist right will return to power in the country, although political terms are a bit meaningless in a place where even the liberal parties support the apartheid status quo. Former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition of political allies won the most seats in the Knesset after elections were held this week, elections in which much of the country is not allowed to vote because of their ethnic identity. The second largest party in Netanyahu's coalition is led by a virulent racist named Itamar Ben-Gvir, who campaigned on ramping up the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. He also is fanatically anti-LGBTQ+. In many ways, Netanyahu is defying the U.S. by embracing figures that make it much more difficult for Washington to make the case that Israel is a free and open society or anything resembling a democracy. As Mondoweiss reported, Senator Bob Menendez, typically a staunch ally of Israel, warned Netanyahu back in June against embracing right-wing extremist figures should he prevail in the elections. And after Netanyahu's win, State Department spokesperson Ned Price said, quote, "We hope that all Israeli government officials will continue to share the values of an open democratic society, including tolerance and respect for all in civil society, particularly for minority groups." Quote, "We hope." It's a pretty cagey statement by its own standards, coming from the State Department. Also, Netanyahu is still facing a trial over corruption charges. News of the right's victory was immediately followed by more airstrikes on Palestinians. On Thursday night, the Israeli Defense Forces launched several attacks against the blockaded Gaza Strip.
Is it something that now you think about it a lot, or is it just something that you've like processed and put away?
It is hard to go more than 30 minutes without thinking about him or about the situation every single day. Everything I see, everybody I see him.
On chat, we would end up talking about stuff that we never would talk about in real life. But even then, I'd try to get more than you gave back.
I don't know, it's just one of my things,
I wanted to take care of you. I tried to take care of you.
Everyone misses me, but no one is with me.
I don't know what I'm tapping into exactly.
The situation is just super busy.
Like going too fast.
He described it as looking at the world through a video camera. Like every day, 24 hours a day. It seems like this is a dream.
Can you tell me how it ends?
When is the first time that you fell in love with sound?
so lying. Waiting for
Hey, it's time for Rich Dicks. Let's check out those nominations on social media. We had our usual suspects, including Rona, who put forward some corporate landlords. A hedge fund known as Alden Global Capital had a subsidiary purchase a mobile home park in Southwest Virginia and immediately started charging residents bogus fees and threatening to evict them if they don't pay. A real dick move. Also had a nomination for a couple Harvard professors who recently wrote an article calling for the hiring of 500,000 more police in the U.S. I guess so that they can also sit around and do nothing except harass homeless people. Let's see, we've got a nomination here for Chipotle CEO Brian Nichols. That's for the union busting we reported on earlier in the show. Fox News host Jesse Waters was nominated for harassing a Starbucks union organizer this week and admitting that he doesn't tip when he gets coffee. Also, a nomination for Doug Mastriano's wife for engaging in some anti-Semitism. But I gotta say, there was a clear favorite this week. One person who overwhelmingly got the most attention from the nominators. And that was, of course, Elon Musk. Yeah, he's had a hell of a week and is ending it with mass layoffs. As you're watching this, Musk is firing a significant portion of Twitter's workforce right after purchasing the company and saddling it with debt. I really can't argue against him being the most deserving of ridicule, but it's almost too easy. And so I went in a slightly different direction. This week's Rich Dick is David Sachs. No relation. Who could possibly steal the dishonors from Elon Musk, you ask? Well, how about an Elon Musk sycophant? Sachs is a venture capitalist who made his fortune working at PayPal, and he goes way back with the Silicon Valley dipshits that have bad politics and are now committed to buying up everything. In fact, in 1996, he co-wrote an article with Peter Thiel in Stanford Magazine criticizing affirmative action, claiming, quote, "The most tragic side effect of affirmative action is that very significant achievements of minority students can become compromised. It is often not possible to tell whether a given student genuinely deserved admission to Stanford or whether he is there by virtue of fitting into some sort of diversity matrix." Yeah, this coming from a guy who was born in Cape Town, South Africa at the height of apartheid. His family owned a candy factory there. Best not to look too much into it, I guess, though, huh, David? Anyway, he's also reported to be part of the small team of advisors Musk has assembled to figure out what to do with Twitter, which is more pertinent to his nomination today. Musk is desperate to raise revenue to, one, pay off all the debt his takeover put on the company, and two, replace ad revenue now that firms are jumping ship. One brilliant idea he had was to charge people $8 a month to be verified. Not only would they get the blue check mark, but their tweets would get seen more and they wouldn't have to deal with as many ads. So basically creating a better Twitter experience, but only for those who can afford it. Or to use Musk's analogy of the town square, you can talk louder if you pay him more money. The idea was panned. An online poll showed that 80% of people wouldn't pay, and even if a decent chunk of users did pay, it would not generate near the revenue the company needs. But Elon's bootlickers still rush to defend it, and that's where David Sachs, no relation, comes in. Probably helped come up with the bad idea to begin with. Check out this tweet, quote, "The entitled elite is not mad that they have to pay $8 a month. They're mad that anyone can pay $8 a month." Huh. So who exactly is the entitled elite here? I mean, David Sachs is worth $200 million. He's a member of the so-called PayPal mafia, and he lives in an area known as Billionaires Row. And Musk is the world's richest man. But I guess I'm the entitled elite because I think this idea is stupid. I don't care about my Twitter account being verified. The only perk is when I talk shit to someone, it's more likely they'll see it because of the blue check mark. Beyond that, it's not associated with any economic status. I got mine because I wrote a few articles for The Intercept 8 years ago. And the most valuable thing I own is a PS5. But to gazillionaire David Sacks, I'm one of the lords of Twitter. Check out this other brain-dead response Sacks had for Congresswoman AOC, who also mocked Musk. She said, quote, LMAO had a billionaire earnestly trying to sell people on the idea that free speech is actually an $8 a month subscription plan. To which Sacks replied, quote, why aren't New York Times, Washington Post, and The Atlantic free? Their billionaire owners should stop being greedy and give us those products for free. Hey dummy, the New York Times and the Washington Post pay their content creators. They don't charge them. For your analogy to work, Twitter would have to pay us to create content for the site, not charge us. Musk has no product without our tweets. Stop being so stupid. Here I am on Twitter all day trying to keep my reputation clean, and this rich dumbass steps up to sully my last name with bad tweets. I will not tolerate it, which is why David Sacks, no relation, is this week's Rich Dick. Hey, if you're curious about what happened this week in working class history, well, you've come to the right place. This segment is literally called This Week in Working Class History. And it's all made possible thanks to the folks at the Working Class History Twitter account and podcast who've given us access to their vast archives. And we begin in 1918, when this week the city of Hamburg fell to the revolutionaries. It was the first major city in Germany to be captured during the revolution. The local government was replaced by a council elected by soldiers and workers, and demands were made against the German state. They included free elections, free speech, equal rights for women, the release of all political prisoners, and the removal of Kaiser Wilhelm II and the imperial monarchy. Within days, Wilhelm would be gone. He fled the country, and soon Germany would become a republic governed by a new constitution. In many ways, the revolution was successful, but also, since its more radical left-wing elements were suppressed, it wasn't able to go far enough in building a worker state. And unfortunately, we know how this story ends. Next up, jumping ahead 1 year to 1919, when this week nearly 500,000 miners across the U.S. went on strike. They had been working for artificially low wages during World War I, while mine owners made enormous profits. After the war ended, the workers wanted their fair share, so the United Mine Workers of America led them on a strike. Federal government outlawed the action and sent in troops to quell it, but workers didn't cave. Only after President Woodrow Wilson promised a 14% raise and convened an arbitration board to address their other demands did workers return to the mines. But labor peace was not achieved, and the following years would see more strikes in the mines. Moving right along now to 1945 and jumping across the pond, where this week, that year, 40,000 UK dock workers ended their strike in victory and secured a 19% pay increase. The strike had lasted 2 months without any support from the Labor government. In fact, officials called the strike illegal and sent in more than 20,000 conscripted troops to break it up. It didn't work, and the government would continue to deal with labor unrest on the docks for years to come. Fast forward now to 1963 with the start of the Harlem rent strike. Started with a couple dozen families withholding their rent due to slum conditions, and would go on to spread beyond Harlem to buildings in the Bronx, Bed-Stuy, and the Lower East Side, with over 800 Black and Puerto Rican families refusing to pay their landlords. The strike was organized by Jesse Gray. Here he is.